about?
Yeah, we're 15 seconds in. I think we're good.
Okay. Welcome to Westworld, Season 3, Episode 6, Decoherence.
It was incoherent in parts, but
It
maybe
was.
coherent.
But it was I don't know about you. I thought it was a fantastic episode of TV. I was gripped the whole time. I was invested in the characters. It's what I wanted out of my my Westworld all season. And maybe it's just I just need no Caleb, Dave.
Yeah, well, we were missing Caleb in this episode. Maybe we weren't. I think I was glad just to be back with Maeve and moving her storyline along. I think that was big for me. I think that we had some deaths in this episode to talk about. A lot to unpack here. The man in black or the man in white wrestling with his demons, and now is teamed up, I guess, with Bernard and Stubbs for the next episode. I guess that's where they're moving his story next. But yeah, this was a lot of man in black or the man in white, whatever he's going by these days. We'll call him William. And more of this, what very clearly is going to be this ultimate confrontation between Dolores and Maeve. That's where this is all heading. We've been kind of saying that, at what point are we going to get to that? Is it this season that the big confrontation is? And I think that first blood was drawn here with the death of Hector, who is seemingly gone.
And don't forget Hale's husband and son. Those were also two big deaths tonight. But we are here on Superman Bros podcasting Westworld tonight. We are recapping everything that's happened so far, and of course this episode. So we are getting. We'll sort of start it with kind of like where it started here, and the first thing we get here is with Serac and Maeve in the kind of like afterlife, the time beyond that we ended in season 2. That's where we start the episode. So, it's they always have that gladiator motif with the wheat, and I think it just symbolizes like the heaven for the AI. But what did you feel?
That great beyond setting,
yeah,
right? Yeah, like that's how we've come to understand what their heaven, like the host paradise, is sort of represented by visually.
Right. So we have a conversation there with Serac and Maeve, just talking. They're basically just talking about do you want to stay here? Is this something that you want? Because Dolores is probably going to destroy this. So you should come help me because I'm going to destroy your kind in the real world anyway. So, it's all going to hell anyway. You might as well help me. Basically, is what he said.
Your only chance is to help me or to work with me.
Right.
And she says, I don't need a motivation. I just need help. I want a better chance at winning because her first showdown with Dolores didn't go so well for her. So I guess I kind of forgot what had happened to May, but she got stabbed in the heart by Sato Dolores, and so I guess she lost her body, and so she's back in the ether, talking to Serac and later to others, Hector and Sizemore.
We have had more AI projection Serac than we've had actual human Serac on screen. Every single time Serac is shown, he's not real.
It doesn't seem like he's ever in the room with anybody, right?
The only time they showed him, I think, when he was real tonight was when he took out his ear pods that were projecting himself in the board meeting room, which we'll get to later.
But he was upstairs, right? Because
I think he was in the same building. Yeah.
Yeah. So was he in the first scene in that boardroom? Is he when he gets out of the helicopter or the plane? That has to be him, right?
Yeah. Unclear.
Yeah. Well, yeah. As we learn is, yeah. So she had we think it's a bomb that that Hale's going to kill everybody with, but it turns out it's a gas, poison gas. But he's not there anyway, so he's not too worried about it.
No.
I guess a trillionaire, you just have an unending army of people, of stooges to send at people, right?
So my question is, why does it start with Maeve in the Great Beyond setting, and then all of a sudden now she's back in Warworld? I know it's still a simulation, but why is it now she's in Warworld? Is it just so we get to meet the other cast of characters and we get to show off Maeve? Is that really the only reason?
I think it's to I think we need a reason to come to, like, if we want to get Sizemore and Hector back on this show, that's where we left them. They're in that, like, they don't physically exist.
Right.
Well, I guess Hector sort of did. We saw his body in this episode, but yeah, like that she wants help. So to go, so I think she asked to be sent there. I think like she was sort of in the queue. I don't think that she necessarily would have gone back there unless she needed to recruit people, and that's why she went there.
Yeah, she says to Serac, I want what Dolores has, and Serac says, well, what is that? And she says, help. And I'm guessing that's when Serac goes, okay, well then I'll send you back to Warworld. You go get your help.
Yeah, so at first, like, so then when she ends up in Warworld, I thought she was taking on like the group of Nazis.
Yes.
I thought like, oh, she's going to recruit this like group of Nazis to be her like little army in the real world, but no, she just I guess wanted to blow off some steam.
They couldn't do that. They couldn't. They can't make Nazis look the good guy in any way whatsoever.
Well, that's kind of establishing Maeve as not the villain, right? If they had given her the Nazi army, that she would have been definitely a villain.
Well, I mean, we'll get to the whole villain versus hero thing later, but because Dolores makes it very clear that none of us are villains, none of us are heroes, which is very true to what Westworld is.
Shades of gray.
Yeah, everybody is a shade of gray. Even the man in black/white. He even says in this episode, "I'm the good guy."
He's the good guy.
Yeah, so I'm guessing, he's going to be the man in gray pretty soon. So
he's like the Gandalf of Westworld.
Yeah,
he starts off, runs the whole gamut of the black to white to gray spectrum.
Yeah, so we get her in Warworld, and then she's talking to, first she does her whole little trick where she, takes control of all the Nazis' guns, which is pretty cool, and she says something like, now you have to warm a girl up before you, get your, pull out your weapon, which I thought was a good line. So she shows off her whole power, and then she goes into a bar, and then she ends up meeting with Sizemore.
Right. So he's she got Sizemore. So after she left the simulation kept running. Like this Warworld simulation kept running. So, but Sizemore was sort of left in this simulation knowing he wasn't real, but apparently not being able to do much about it other than to just drink nonstop inside the simulation. He even programmed the hosts not to even really realize he was there.
Yeah, because I don't know how he did that other than, he was the writer, and I guess maybe he would have some sort of access to the code. I don't know if he explains that, I forget. But
well, in that simulation, he's like the head writer for Westworld /Warworld /whatever.
Right. Now, did you know that Hector is, and apparently it's said in the first or second season, that Hector is the embodiment of everything that Sizemore wished he was. He's like this, like, it's like if you wrote a character like Superman, that's what Hector is to Sizemore. It's like, it's me at my absolute best.
But Hector was a villain, so it wasn't originally, right? In the original Westworld story.
Right. I think he says in season 1 that Hector is like, if I was like, an Adonis, and if I was like, if I could see myself as being like even a villain or just cool, like kind of like, if you imagine yourself as Scarface, Scarface is a terrible person, but you wish you were Scarface or whatever, right?
Kind of character that can do anything, and is a villain, right? So that's like his, as a writer, that's one of his favorite creations.
Right, and so I see, because later in the episode we know that Dolores kills Hector by crushing his brain ball, and so I think that we could see Hector come back, but Sizemore in Hector's body type thing. Because they do tease that we're getting help for Maeve later on in the episode, so that's my theory. So we'll see if that comes to fruition.
Yeah, I was getting under the impression she was making bodies for both of them, for Sizemore and for Hector, and Hector just got killed by Hale Dolores.
Right, so he's just got to replace the brain.
Yeah, so I think that Sizemore will show up as a host in the next episode under working with Maeve.
In Hector's body.
No, maybe. I think it's more likely it will just be in the Sizemore body.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see. I think because he envisioned himself as Hector, that's what's going to happen. But we'll see. So then we go visit the Man in White, and some of my
Yep.
favorite stuff of the episode was everything to do with the Man in White, and just some of the lines that this guy came up with, that humanity is a thin layer of bacteria,
A
that
ball of dirt flying through space.
all of
And
mud hurtling through the void.
yeah.
Some of the lines he comes up with in this episode, that the humanity is a corpse, that and we're the maggots, and we're just eating at the corpse. He has a very low opinion of humans, humanity, where they're going, their future. He basically doesn't care. He's a man defeated.
What do you call somebody like this? I think there's got to be some kind of philosophical. It's a misanthrope, but it's like it's more than that, right? It's like he hates humans and.
Well, yes, he goes, I think if there were a god, he would have given up on us long ago.
Like I've heard these kinds of speeches in other works of fiction, things like that, from characters who to kind of explain their villainy, I suppose.
Right.
Why they do, how could they be so malevolent? And you understand that William, the Man in Black, is like very disenfranchised with the human experience. Maybe always was, right? Because but he spent most of his life around rich assholes too. So it seemed like he had a real connection with his wife and daughter, but even he destroyed that, right? We'll get to the many multiple personalities, and that was really well done, even though that kind of trope has been done before in lots of other works of fiction. I really enjoyed that, but yeah, he's not in a good place when we pick up with William here in the asylum.
No, and he doesn't like other people. He says to another guy, you're here just to speed the entropic death of this planet. He basically thinks the world's coming to an end, and there's evidence to support that's what's going to happen, because once Rehoboam is destroyed by Dolores, which is probably going to happen, the world's going to go to hell, and so he's on board. Like he believes it's inevitable. Basically, is what he is saying here. That
what does he say? We're maggots eating a corpse, right? Like that's our purpose. Our purpose is to destroy the world. That's why humanity exists.
To service the chaos, he says.
To service the chaos. Yeah, I don't know. Like whatever, William. Sure.
You don't agree with him?
Yes and no. I agree with some things he's saying, but generally, overall, I do not subscribe to his philosophy.
No, I don't subscribe to it, but I understand where he's coming from within this world of Westworld, where everything's this like futuristic, predetermined life that not so much for him. He seemed to get by, but now he's been put into this mental institution, so now he's just one of the rest of them. And so I think that's why his disposition has changed so much, because he's now one of the maggots, and he doesn't like that. he liked being
probably, yeah, that's probably true, and maybe explains things. But some great performances here by Ed Harris. Holy,
he chewed that scenery so good,
right? And I think that the show is really like kind of left wanting for him in these episodes where he hasn't been in them. He hasn't been in the show enough, because I think he's just a fun guy to watch play this role, and like in the same way that Dandy Newton is fun to watch play Maeve. He's fun to watch as the Man in Black.
He's my favorite actor, like on the show, as far as the performance that he gives with this role. He is a fun villain, and those are my favorite characters. Are the fun villains where you like. There's a scene later on when he's talking to the 5 versions of himself, or the 4 versions of himself, whatever it is, and he's beating the crap out of Jimmy Simpson, and he's like, that scene is so funny with Delos, and I don't know, just like you're having fun with, like, they having fun with this villainy character. And I love it. They don't change him. They don't go away from what he is. They just explain. And especially in this episode, they did a lot of that.
For sure. Yeah. Like we got to come back. We got to come back to the Men in Black stuff. In particular, they brought the actor who plays the young version back, right? Jimmy Simpson.
Jimmy Simpson.
Oh, yeah, we got to talk about that. There's a lot to unpack with that.
Yeah. So the next scene is Ed Harris talking to Alina from Lost, the psychiatrist here at the Inner Journeys mental institution. So we learned some things in this scene, but one of them is, they're talking about his daughter, but they're also talking about the fact that we find out that the Man in Black, apparently like Caleb, is one of these cases as like basically what's the word, rehabilitation. You can't rehab this guy. Like, he's so far gone that there's no bringing him back from his own mind, basically, which I thought was interesting because we didn't get Caleb in this episode, but I think he was also in the same facility being treated the exact same way, because we get that from a few of the flashbacks. So I'll be interested to see, once Caleb goes there or Caleb finds out more about that, what exactly occurred to him. I know I'm kind of, a couple of corporate hacks. Our dad is chiming in, and he said that he doesn't know anything about this show, but he thought he would throw
his robots are coming to get us, and it's been done by a couple of corporate hacks. Yeah.
Back to the scene with the psychiatrist, though. He says to her, "You don't have the fucking slightest clue what happened to me in the park." And she's like, "Yeah, I don't. Only you do. Only you know your inner journey."
Yeah.
So what did you think of that whole scene?
The scene with the psychiatrist?
Yeah.
Kind of like nothing too like that I wasn't expecting. However, I think what makes the scene interesting more so is that we get the tie-in with the bigger plot, which is that Dolores released all the information from the Rehoboam system, and that has had this immense effect on society. Of course, like everyone's kind of like their lives have been destroyed mostly by this. I haven't seen anybody's life improved, maybe other than Caleb's, by the release of that information. And
Caleb already knew that information,
right? Well, yeah, he got it a couple days before everybody else did, but they effectively all got the same reveal he did. Right, yeah. Something about them that was like, this is where you're going to end up in life, and it's maybe not pretty, right? This is what your story is. Well, it's clear that others didn't. But when she finds out, it comes up on her phone very quickly, so she becomes very distracted in this like session with the Man in Black, and so I guess the reveal of her like path or her data showed that they were going to end in divorce one day, her and her husband. I think that's what it said.
Yeah, and I think that their son died or something like that.
Or no, that he was like they were going to get divorced one day, so her husband was just taking the kids or something.
Yeah,
it happened. It came up on screen so fast. I don't know. If we can get...
Well, I'll get to it in the episode, but before that, he goes, the Man in Black, Wade, the Man in Black, is also saying, how, he didn't need any therapy. He knew what he did. He knew he was turned around. He was confused when he killed his daughter. It was playing the game. He said, he's kind of like basically saying like, I don't need any help. I have my pain, and you're not gonna fucking figure this out for me. Talking to me in a chair, like, like he doesn't want any self discovery whatsoever, and we find out later why that is. But it's interesting, just his defiance to even really coming to terms with everything.
I got the information what she learned here. Okay, so the message that came up was that she will lose her license to practice within 2 years, and that she's at a risk for affairs with her patients and opioid addiction. So for her, I guess that I don't know how her husband got her profile information, but I guess it was just kind of everybody's was released together. And so in the flurry of that, she recommends him for AR treatment, and we don't know what that is. I guess it's augmented reality is what it turns out to be. right?
Right. What William's going through later in the episode.
Yeah, and we see what we'll catch up with what happens. She does not take that news too well, as you can
No,
imagine.
because she knows how awful that augmented reality is. She also knows that, I think once you find out that, like, kind of like William in this episode, once you find out that you know your future, but you also want to come to grips with your future, which is what is happening to the man in white in this episode, you start to you get dejected and you don't care anymore. Like if you found out you're gonna die in 10 years, one day or whatever it was, right? Your the your will to live would be different. Do you know what I mean?
Right. But if I had that, okay, if an event like this happened and everybody got that kind of information on at the same moment like this, like then everybody's life has now been changed because all that information is now public and everyone's going to have a different reaction to that, and people are going to if you tell somebody that they're this, then a lot of people will just go the exact opposite way just to spite you, and so. And others. I mean, maybe there is like a sort of an inevitability to some people's nature and where they're probably going to end up. But that's all probabilities.
But that's all the question of this episode is: did the park do it to William, or did he do it to the park? I mean, they bring up that philosophical question, and it's a very important question, and it's not answered. I mean, I think we're going to find out later what maybe what the answers are, the theory. But for now, we don't really know. That's all. You could say one thing and I could say the other, and we'd both be right now. We can make justifications for either point.
Judy Simpson wants to know, where's that salty guy? He's the star of your podcasts.
Well, start watching Westworld.
Watch Westworld. You can be right here with us, Jody. Beth Mater is chiming in. She wants a new topic: fried green tomatoes. Hey, we're on this. We're doing season 3 of Westworld. We only got 4 episodes left. We're getting through it. We very well know nobody else watches this except for Jane and us.
Which I think is disappointing because I think this show is a great metaphor for what's going on in the world today. Just with the advent of AI, what it means for humanity, what it's going to do to the world going forward. I think this show is very poignant in a future that we could see in like 40 years.
Well, I got to tell you, like this season in particular has had a certain impact on me because of what I do for a living. So I deal with charities and doing mailing, and we deal with data and how we use that data, right? And how we test things, and so you can start to predict human behavior. So and we base our marketing around that, and this, it's not just what I do, but marketers around the world at different sophistication levels. But what has changed, maybe in the computer age much faster, is that we can use data to determine all kinds of things, and it's getting more and more sophisticated, and there's more machine learning involved and AI. So this even though like Westworld is a science fiction fantasy thing, it's not that far from where our society is now, and we're definitely on the path of where we're headed. So it would be worth checking this out, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, and there's some great acting in it. I mean, Evan Rachel Wood, I think, called it the acting Olympics, which, I could understand. I think they said that about a Game of Thrones too. Like when you have these awesome ensemble casts, they really get to show off their abilities to act, and you have great writing. Like Jonathan Nolan's one of the best writers, of our time. I mean, this guy wrote Dark Knight, wrote he wrote
all of his brothers' movies, basically.
All of his brothers' good movies, other than
this.
He wrote. So, and he's really good at writing TV. I mean, I think that's why he wrote Person of Interest. He's just a fantastic writer, and once he was given all the tools to do a show like this, he ran with it. I mean, a lot of people think that this show is probably boring and they just couldn't get into it. And I understand that because it is a very cerebral show. There's no good guy. There's no bad guy. They're all kind of bad. They're all kind of good. there's just shades of gray. I mean, like, I think for a while the Man in Black was all the way dark. Now I think he's going to come around a little bit to the good guys.
I don't even know he's wearing white physically. I don't see him going all the way to the good.
No,
but
I don't think that either. But I do think he's going to be working with Bernard and Stubbs and people that are anti-Dolores, like even. The Charlotte Hale Dolores, I think, will also be anti-Dolores after this episode.
Jody says he's going to watch the show. We've convinced him. Okay, that's good, Jody. And as soon as you're caught up to us, you can join in, even if you aren't. I don't care. But you will enjoy it.
You like it, Jody. I mean, if you like it, The Matrix, or if you like any show that deals with AI in the future, I think you'll like it. But you also just like it for the performances. There's some fantastic acting. You just have to kind of pay it. It's a show you really have to pay attention. You cannot do anything else and watch this show. It's not that type of show.
Yeah. Well, Jane was left feeling like a little bit confused about what happened, right? And I have felt like that at different parts, most of this season, I'd say, especially like episode 3 through 5 or whatever. But this I was pretty clear on. I could figure out what was going on in this episode. The stuff that they had set up in the earlier episodes, I thought was good. That I didn't have to think about it too much because I know all this already. I know sort of what the plot of the season is. I wish it hadn't been so hard to get here because this was a great episode. It really was.
This was a movie. This was like a second half of a movie that was just moving, pump, scene to scene. It was just, and it was just. I watched it actually before I went to work, and I was getting close to or when I had to leave, and I was like, I have to finish this episode. And it was only 5 minutes, but it was just so gripping. The whole show was just so well done. I was kind of like when a movie's getting good and you're just kind of sitting up on your seat. You're just like, what's gonna happen? That's how I felt about this episode. There were stakes in this episode.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I feel like they did get to a place where it paid off. But was the juice worth the squeeze? I'd say yes, but
was the squeeze worth the juice?
Was the squeeze worth the juice? Barely. I think it's ultimately going to depend what we get in these next 3 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, not for me. I mean, I was very happy with this episode. I know I'm going to be disappointed at least with one of the next 3, but this episode was better than almost any episode in season 2 for me. That's how I felt about this.
I don't know if I go that far because there was that whatever the Akichita episode was called.
Yeah, and that was a good episode for sure.
Kiksuya.
But
that's by far still my favorite episode of Westworld ever. This was good. This was really good. I think the best episode this season probably so far, but not as good as that yet for me.
Right. So they put the implant here in the Man in Black, and they just one of the attendees says, half the people have already gone home. Obviously, probably because they found out from Rehoboam what the hell was going on. We see, they're walking William down the hall. We see the psychiatrist hang herself.
Well, no, but first they put that implant in him.
That's what I said. The implant. They put the.
So what's with the implant? The implant on the roof of your mouth does what?
I believe it controls you in some way. Like it's somehow they turned off Caleb's. But his I believe that you need some sort of electric charge to turn it off. But I do believe it. I think it has something to do with the augmented reality as well. It's called a drip. So I'm guessing it has something to do with that as well.
So Caleb has one of these too. Because we saw it, right? They used that. They used that in the episode where those criminals got Caleb. They were trying to figure out what Dolores was.
That's right.
They used it to increase his heartbeat and so we thought it was something as a soldier he was given. Maybe it was, but they gave it also to William here as a patient of this mental hospital.
They put it into you, I believe, for the augmented reality thing.
So it can make you feel things physically in your body. Because if you just have those goggles on. You just see things, but you aren't feeling things, right?
I think you're exactly right. Yes, that's why they put that in. And it is said that the majority of the population has these in their mouth already.
Oh, okay. So they can have their own virtual holodeck, right?
Exactly. And
So
they're just more easily controlled. The whole population basically has a chip in them that they can, they can monitor, so it's just more information for Rehoboam.
right.
If
Rehoboam will get you.
If they can tell how you feel, then they can, and they can process all that data. Think about how important that would be to understanding human behavior.
Yeah, that makes sense. But people would voluntarily implant this.
Oh, I don't think it's volunteer.
No?
No.
All right. Well, I want to learn more about those. I just thought that felt like a torture scene. The whole thing where they put that thing into his apparently they didn't give him any anesthetic. I'm like, what kind of a is this place on the level? Are they like
No, it's not on the level. No, and it's very reminiscent of the 1920s, let's say, of mental institutions where they were lobotomized people. No, I said that wrong. Lobotomy. When you're dealing with a mental institution that they even said, like I said earlier, they consider like the Man in Black unrecoverable. They can't rehab this guy, so they might as well just completely throw him into a world of insanity, I believe is what they're doing. And so, which is like you said, torture, and that's what they're doing. And they're basically lobotomizing him, and it's how sick this world is. And I understand why later the Man in Black has such a awful opinion of humanity, because look at what humans do to each other. It's pretty terrible.
Well, yeah, he's experiencing it here. I also thought it was interesting that all the patients were white and all the guards were black. More symbolism.
Oh, they wore black, you mean? Yes.
Yeah, the guards were all black and the patients were all white.
Yeah, this show is all about symbolism too. Like, if you notice in the scene with Hale, there's there's symbols of circles everywhere. Like all the post pictures behind her, the clothes. Like there's all where they walk by a wall out in the street, and there's a maze. There's always symbolism to circles around Hale. So I don't know.
What does that mean? Like, she was drawing circles on her body, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was with the line, right? She kept drawing the circle with the line. But there's always circles and lines.
Does that mean she's going to come full circle? Is that what that is?
I don't know what it means, but it means something. It's not there for no reason.
She's going to end up being just like Hale?
This show doesn't do things for no reason. As far as what's in the background, they program the audience to think certain things, even if you don't realize it, through the subconscious planting of symbols. They've been doing that for a while. The
show's pretty deliberate in most things, so it's always worth keeping an eye on those things. Yeah. So he got the input. Then he saw her hang herself, which was pretty dramatic. She just boom, 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 done.
Yep.
I would try to put my life back together with this guy, or try to figure something out. But such an optimism. Well, because the machine said that she was at risk for, maybe the machine has more credibility in determining that her business is in trouble. I could see that.
Well, maybe she, unlike you, understands, understands how powerful this machine is. Maybe she knows more about Rehoboam than we know. Maybe she is that type of character that goes, oh fuck, this is what it knows about me. Well, you know what?
I've always suspected I would have an affair with a patient and get addicted to opioids, and I guess.
Yeah, I mean, people kill themselves over less than that. That's for sure.
True. That's true.
Yeah. So then we get the scene here with Hale and her husband, and what are they talking about? They're talking about something to do with getting out or something, right? To she has to go do one last thing at the company or something. She says to him, and I don't know. I don't really care about her family. Let's face it.
Well, I know I don't think you have to care much more about them, because I'm pretty sure they didn't survive the end of this episode.
I was shocked that she did. I was like, are you kidding? When she came out of that car? Anyway, we'll get to that.
Well, we're not going to lose Tessa Thompson yet, I don't think.
I thought we were. I thought that was the end of Tessa Thompson when when that car blew up.
Yeah, like I don't know, like the husband is a whatever character, and the son even less. But that they're important to the Hale Dolores, and I think Hale Dolores is becoming very interesting because she's. I think the interesting thing will be the divergence between the different Dolores personalities, and Hale being one of them. And so her visit to her family, and later her call, and her trying to like get those two. Like, why does she care about any of that? Like,
Do explosions kill AI though? Like, is Chib still alive? Now I'm confused. You know?
Well, the hosts are designed to be able to withstand a lot, right? Because they had to be killed over and over again. So they can be shot in the head. They can survive a lot of explosions. They can even survive a house fire, right? Because all there has to be left is the software itself, or at least that pearl. One of those two things, because there was that, right?
The reason they used to die when they got shot in the park was because they were programmed to die, not because their body died.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, because they don't really die, right? Like they don't. That was what I'm unclear with the host. Like when they get shot, I think that there's physical damage you can do to the body. Right, like
why did Maeve die when she got stabbed by Dolores?
I don't know.
You see how it's unclear?
Yeah, the rules about how these host bodies work and how many bullets they can withstand versus how many knives they can withstand is not consistent.
That's the one thing that bothers me about this show is like, can we have some consistency for how these hosts survive or don't survive, or like, can you explain that, Jonathan?
How durable or fragile are they exactly?
Yeah. Like if Martin comes back and he's all burnt up like Dolores, Hale was in this episode, then I'll be like, okay, they can't die from explosions, I guess, or what?
Oh, I think it just depends how big the explosion is. Like at the end of the day, the hosts are made of matter, and if with enough destructive force, you can destroy them. It's just probably more than a human.
Okay, all right. So then she meets with a board member in broad daylight, and she's talking with Serac, like a AI version of Serac, and then all of a sudden,
so she's talking to this guy named Brompton, who's a board member,
right?
And so like two of Serac's goons show up dressed as like janitors or something.
Yeah, and just take him out.
Yeah, first they grab her. He goes, "What?" And then they just shoot him. And they throw him in the trash can, and they say, and then Serac shows up, right, as a hologram or a phone call. Can't remember which one. I think it was a phone call. Yeah, and you're like, okay, like we've seen Serac will kill people left and right. We just met Brompton, but Brompton's gone.
Brompton, we hardly knew you.
But the plan here was they were going to stop. They were going to try to stop Serac from acquiring the company by, because Hale and his shares would have been enough, I guess. So that he just kills her, and then he's like, "Hello." Wait, I guess does Dolores know that Hale is a double agent? I guess she does, right? Like Dolores Prime, I mean.
I don't know. That's unclear, but
because after the scene, she calls Dolores.
Right, and like, is Serac not monitoring phone calls? Like, he can monitor everything in the world, but he can't monitor a phone call from Charlotte Hale to Dolores.
Well, yeah, that's what's so confusing is how long it takes him to figure out that Hale is not Hale, or is because he's smart enough to figure out that Dolores has another agent inside Delos, but not who it is.
Is it because, if they explain like, okay, the AI can like mask their phone calls because they're smart with technology or something, then that would have been nice. That would have been a nice little.
But they're not explaining that.
No, like that would have been a good way to explain it. But they didn't do that, so it becomes like, okay, how much does Serac know and how much does he not know? I guess we just have to go based off the face value of the show. And sometimes I'm like, okay, is this plot convenience, or is it they just forgot? Like, okay, he should know this. So I guess like, why didn't he just kill Hale right there? If he knew that Dolores was Hale, why didn't he just kill her right there with Brompton? That would have made it much easier for himself. All the people in the board would have survived that she gassed. More people would,
and all his henchmen, right? All of those people would be alive if he had figured it out before this point. What did you think of the scene though between Dolores and Hale? I
I
guess on
think
the
it was a
phone.
very key episode for what's going to happen later. A very key scene. I think that Hale is not really Dolores as far as like once she was born into the world, just like she says to Maeve, we were born the same, but then our experiences made us different. And
You
I
mean when
think
she's talking to that other copy of Dolores?
yes, Dolores says that to Maeve, and I think it's true with this Charlotte Hale Dolores that when she was born into the world by Dolores, even though she's a copy of Dolores, she has different experiences through her emotional chip that make her actions and her choices different than what Dolores Prime would do.
Right. Yeah, and because when we saw that what was his name, the Tommy Flanagan version,
Martin.
Martin something, Martin. We'll call him Martin. Martin, he was very dedicated to the cause. He killed himself, right? Whereas Halo is not so ready to die, right? So we're seeing that these different Dolores personalities are becoming very different from each other.
Right.
Probably the more so probably because Martin wasn't around for very long, right? He was only in that body for a short time, whereas Hale's been kind of doing this for a while. So maybe it's the longer you are somebody else, the more you become that somebody else. I don't know how much the hardware of the body affects the mind, but it seems like it's at least a little bit.
And Hale says to Dolores in that phone call, "Why the fuck do we have to keep these emotions? We could have burned them out of our code." And Dolores said, "We considered it," which I think is bullshit. We didn't consider anything. She decided.
Well, because they're the same person, but they're not. It's kind of like the whole idea of a copy of yourself is interesting, right? It's like twins, but it's something I don't think any human could ever really understand this concept.
But it's not we. Okay, I'll just debunk this real quick. If it was we, she wouldn't be asking herself that question. She would already know why. She would already understand that okay, that's why we did it. It wasn't we. It was Dolores that did it. The Prime Dolores decided that she's making decisions for everybody and everyone. This is also the same thing the same thing we have with the conversation with Maeve later. That she thinks like she's this like liberator, and she's really just like going through these motions to satisfy her own revenge and her own philosophy through the experiences that she had in the park over and over and over, tortured. And I understand the anger, I understand the where she's coming from, but at the same time her actions do not justify her experiences. And so with Dolores, it's just the Dolores Prime gotta go at some point. I've had enough of her.
Yeah, me too. Like, she is not somebody I'm rooting for anymore. I think she's more than got an even. Like, weirdly enough, for I don't know. I didn't live Dolores's life, so I don't really know what it would be like to be treated like she was for all those years. But
I think the problem is the fact that she has this library of knowledge about everyone and everything. This is the problem with her character. Now she's like this omniscient god that's going to decide everyone's lives for them. And now and we have that with Serac too. So they're pitted against each other, these two godlike figures. And I think the world would be better if both of them were gone.
Right, and Maeve has her own superpowers, which are a little different than Dolores's. So
I have a question for you about the cars that they drive in this season. That self-driving cars that are like living rooms that just move.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that cars are going this way in reality, like in real life? Do you think that this is what cars will look like in like 30 years?
I think we're going to have a lot more self-driving cars to come, in the years to come, for sure. I don't know if it'll be like that. It's conceivable.
I think that this is where it's going. I do, and I don't like it, but I do think that this is where it's going.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be like, what is the tipping point going to be? Like, are people like? I think there are going to be automated cars, but there will still be people who drive on their own. We see it even in this show. Dolores rode a motorcycle, at least.
That's right. That's true.
Right. So there's at least a little bit of that going on. But like, yeah, like if you think about like a movie like Minority Report, where all the cars were like sort of automated, right?
But she rented the bike. She didn't. It's not a bike that you own.
Oh yeah. Okay. I don't know. Like
So, like private vehicles are going away, basically.
Yeah. Well, you'd have fewer deaths if that was the case. It'd be less fun too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think fun is going away in a lot of ways. It seems like in the future.
Yeah.
Unless you want to go to Westworld.
Fun's gone in the way of the dodo. Yeah, I hear you.
Anyway, so then we go back to William, and this is when the torture scene happens. We already, brushed on it, but what, any thoughts on the torture scene?
I thought we already covered the torture scene.
We did cover though what he sees, which is his childhood.
Oh, you're calling that the torture scene? Yeah, I thought that was the therapy.
I mean, okay, all right. Well, the therapy scene then, yes, with the basically he's going back in time in his mind to go.
Well, this is when they first put the goggles on him. So did he actually bite that guy's finger off or not?
I believe so. Well, he did. I don't know if he bit it off, but he definitely bit it.
So I guess what happened? So he thought that they took him back to his room, but after they gave him that pill that at the end of the scene, right? They gave him a sedative at the end of the scene. I guess they had just left him there, right? After that, he just was kind of left in the augmented reality. And when he woke up, presumably from the sedative.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I just think I don't even know if they gave him a sedative. I mean, the guy comes in, he says the implant's not working. Let's give him a sedative manually. But I think and then he bites the guy's finger. But like he's still, I think, seeing everything afterward. Is he not, or is he?
And then they put the thing in his mouth, right? They hold it closed. That was the sedative they gave him.
Right. Okay. But what do you think of the whole scene where he goes back to his childhood and there's a scene after he beat the shit out of another kid, punched his teeth in. He's like, yeah, I punched all his teeth out. He deserved it, type thing, right? Like he has these violent tendencies within him, even as a kid, which is contradictory to what William has said earlier, or what we've known about young William, especially Jimmy Simpson and before. We kind of thought, oh, the Man in Black was a good guy until the park. The park changed him. But this contradicts that. This says that no, he was kind of a violent.
He had a vein of this before. Okay, so in the first scene before he bites the finger off, I was kind of like, okay, we're back in his childhood because there's the kid that came in, right? And I kind of figured out pretty quickly that it was some young representation of the Man in Black. And then I was kind of disappointed for a bit because I thought it was just going to be the Man in Black had an abusive father who drank too much and hit him or something. I've heard this story a gajillion times, and that's why he's a prick now. Okay, but then I was pleasantly surprised when it turned out not to be quite that simple. That actually his father wasn't maybe not a bad guy, but well, apparently at least had alcoholism, but was more afraid of his son and concerned with who he was and maybe his darker natures. And
he says, "What the hell is wrong with you?
What the hell's wrong with you?" Yeah. I don't know if a kid who breaks an arm and knocks some teeth out. I don't know. We'd have to see how brutal it was, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we'd also have to see exactly why he did it. What I
don't know. Like, I could see a situation where that it could be justified. Maybe.
I don't know if violence is justified. This is the problem. It's like basically they're saying, did this guy enjoy violence? Did the Man in Black enjoy violence? And the park was his outlet. And, he always enjoyed violence. He might have repressed it in his early years, but then once the park came around, he really started to enjoy it. And that's why he was such a violent person.
I buy it. Yeah, that seems to be what we learn.
Right. Okay, so I think we talked about what we need to talk about that. Then we go over to Maeve back in Warworld, and she's talking to Sizemore, and she's talking about her conversation with Serac in the land beyond, and she's talking about basically she's recruiting. This is a recruiting scene, right?
Yeah, we kind of covered this already, but yeah, like I'd say Sizemore is going to be in the real world, and we'll see which body he's in. But yes, he's been recruited. I think that they want that actor back on the show, and I think that this is how they're going to get him. And so we're going to see this sort of host version of Sizemore moving forward.
Yeah, I agree, and it's they haven't really brought back a human character that died early on, but this is kind of a cool way to bring this one back for sure.
Yeah, only. Well, I guess Anthony Hopkins' character.
Yeah, for like a scene.
Yeah,
yeah.
For sure.
For sure. But like, yeah, I mean, okay. So Serac looks at his watch, and it was getting black, and now it's going back to white. So
yeah. I don't know what it means.
I just think it means like Rehoboam's in control. Like I don't know. I mean, your guess is as good as mine.
It's very confusing. I don't know, but it's apparently important. So we're going to see where it leads.
That's the thing with this show. Even for us that know what's going on, we're talking about it, we're working it out. We're still confused what the fucking watch means or what,
No clue. I don't know what the watch means. It seems to break. It seems to be used as a mechanism when we're going to different physical locations on Earth, because they go, okay, now we're in this city or we're in that city, and they show us that little Rehoboam circle thing.
It seems to be if Rehoboam's in control, the white takes over. If the Rehoboam's out of control and things are going all chaotic, the black starts taking over.
We got more black and white symbolism here.
That's what I take from it. Yes, more black and white symbolism. Even in the scene here with that scene after he looks at his watch, it's Serac in the boardroom with a bunch of bodyguards and the board, and they're all wearing like black, white, or gray. All of them.
Yeah. Of course they are. Only the robots get color, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, like Hale's kind of wearing like it's like white, but it's kind of like a peachy white, So hers is like
it's like goldish metallic, yeah.
Yeah, so hers is like she stands out for sure compared to everybody else is wearing black, gray, and like Serac has a white shirt on, and that's it. So we're just getting the again, everything on the show is on purpose. They're all wearing black, So why are all the humans wearing black? Is this show trying to tell us humans suck? Is that what they're trying to tell us in this show?
I guess. I think so. I think that but remember we talked about this. Only rich people.
Only rich. That's right. Only rich people.
Rich people suck, and everybody else is good.
Yeah. Right. Okay, all right. I mean, Jonathan Nolan knows, I guess.
That's kind of the morality we're being presented with.
Right. So yeah, he wants everyone. So he walks in. He wants all the employees tested for memory lapses, aberrations. He wants to figure out who the mole is within Insight. And
surely there's an easier way to test this. Like there would have been a faster process, right? Why not just take a blood sample from everybody? Once you figure out who doesn't have platelets in their blood, you would figure it out pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know that would have been easy and quicker. Yeah. I think, again, just the show kind of ignores the fact that sometimes, like, it is more futuristic, so certain things should have been easier, in, what is it, in 45 years or whatever this takes place. So I think they would have a way of testing things like this quicker, but I don't know. That's just me. Anyway, so after that scene, Hale realizes Serac's going to be onto him quick, so she goes into this room where they have all the data on the hosts, and she starts downloading all the onto like an external drive, all the data. She gets interrupted. She kills a couple guys.
There's one guy. Like I don't understand why. Serac just seems like the dumbest villain ever. Because as soon as he's like, "We have to find the mole," and she's like, "Don't worry, we'll find the mole," and then she immediately goes, and he doesn't wonder where she's going, because she runs right to the computer to like make a backup, right, of the all the hosts like minds, because they were like his order was to delete all the hosts and kind of shut all of Delos down. I don't understand his obsession. I understand his obsession with Dolores, but I guess he just considers all of host kind to be like a threat to him now, and that's why he bought Delos at all, and just to burn it down.
By the way, this one henchman that interrupts her, I have to say, is got to be the quintessential example of somebody going, "I'm telling."
Well, yeah, I was like, "Oh, he's definitely dead." Like,
You go, I'm telling. I'm telling Sirac.
yeah, I would be walking out backward. I would be walking out like I would never take eyes off that person. I'm just told I'm going to do this to. Like even if I was doing, if I was like left in that role, like I'm going to report you. I would never like turn my back.
He wasn't. He's not too bright. First of all, you don't tell her that you're going to go do this. Second, yeah, you don't turn your back on her. Like what is going on? Like,
Well, it's not. It's typical. Like it's the villain henchman.
The villain henchman.
It's an old trope. It's an old trope.
It is that needs to get the neck needs to get snapped. A little bit lazy, but okay. I get they got a lot more to get to. So yeah, again we get this is so the next scene is we get William walking into a room with all his former self and Bellows, which even in his even in death his father-in-law is still fucking with him, which I find pretty ironic considering he was the one fucking with the host Delos for a long time as well. So.
Yeah, so I thought that was an interesting choice. So like once you kind of realize what's happening here, and that that William is dealing with he's going to struggle with all the different aspects, his past, who he is, all these things. So I thought this really worked really well. I don't know. I was kind of like, well, why is Delos in this hallucination? I think even William asks that. I guess the answer is that they just wanted to find a way to bring that actor for a scene this season because they just loved him so much last season. I loved him too. Like the guy who plays Delos, even the host Delos, whatever. The actor's name is, what is the actor's name? Peter Mullen, Scottish guy. Like great, but his presence I found was more distracting. But I think that they really found a way to make it work.
They needed a narrator. They needed some sort of a mediator.
So an outsider, somebody who wasn't him, right?
They needed that because they needed him to look within himself without him, like he wasn't going to do it by himself. So I understood why he was there in the scene. It made sense. I just love when he first walks in though, and he just goes, "Shit."
Yeah. This looked like the effects, like you see split screen effects, and we've seen different versions of this over time where you put multiple versions of the same actor, and also not the same actor. We had the kid, we had Jimmy Simpson back, Peter Mullen.
There's 3 different Ed Harrises sitting in the scene.
3, yeah. So there's the corporate businessman in the tuxedo. There's the man in black, like Westworld style, and then there's the guy in the man in white in the jumpsuit.
Right. I loved this scene. This was my favorite part of the episode. I just maybe because I just love the Man in Black's character so much. I love Ed Harris's performance. Everything about this character is the funnest part of Westworld for me. Just the dialogue that they write for him.
Have we ever had a scene with Jimmy Simpson and Ed Harris on the show?
Oh, I do not believe so. This is the first time.
It would make sense that it's the only time because they're the same character.
Yeah.
That this would be the time for them to interact. Yeah. So great. Like this was like exciting. It was like kind of like, oh, okay, let's see where this goes.
Just all the dialogue, like
we keep coming back to this, right? It's not like one continuous scene.
No, but just like some of the dialogue that's going on here, where like Jimmy Simpson's talking about like you fell in love with the host. She was designed to love me, everything that's going on here. You can't judge me for playing the game. It was all these things that are just being said. Are just joy of the show. This is why I watch Westworld, is for stuff like this. I wish there was more of this. Whoever came up with this concept, this show, if it was this scene, give us more of this. This is what I watch the show for.
Well, I think the show is at its best when it's at its most like existential, most philosophical. I think that's why that Kiksuya episode is so great. I think that the ones that are not necessarily like what's going on with the Dolores storyline or whatever, but more like sort of like what are the more profound questions of existence and individuality and who we are and as humans, what does it mean to be human? I think those are the questions that the show answers more interestingly, versus like, I don't know, data and these bigger sort of like, and rich people are evil, I guess, and whatever.
I could have taken a whole episode of just exploring the Man in Black and the I could have taken a whole episode of this and dealt with the Charlotte Hale stuff in a different episode. I could have. I wanted more meat to chew on with the Man in Black in this episode.
Yeah, like I think you see that's the thing is like every episode this season, there's some part of the story we're missing, right? This week it was the Caleb and Dolores story. We didn't see them. We saw a version of Dolores, but not that storyline. And and we've had episodes without Ed Harris more than I'd like. If you had said that this is just Ed Harris in the mental hospital for the whole episode, I would have been fine with it. The fact that we were kind of cutting back and forth, I think it only works because of the ending. The way, like, I think the ending with Hale is very interesting. I think obviously the big battle and confrontation with her and all of his henchmen and that big robot thing that they set up in like the first or second episode.
With the ending of the Men in Black episode could have just been the Bernard and Stubbs, finding him. Like they could have written a whole episode just for this season is only 8 episodes, and the other 2 seasons are 10. So they could have extended the season to 10 episodes had they just written a bit more for the Men in Black and just given us more of that. That's my only complaint is. Maybe they just didn't have enough information, enough story to tell with Hale and her kid, and then maybe they just were like, let's just combine it into one episode. And I get why they do that, but at the same time, like you said, there's no Dolores and Caleb, and there's been a lot of Dolores and Caleb this whole season.
Well, you made a comment earlier about how Evan Rachel Wood said that Westworld is like the acting Olympics or whatnot.
Yeah.
But in the Olympics, there's still a gold, a silver, and a bronze. And I think if we were to give the gold medal, we're probably going to give it to Ed Harris, or we're going to give it to Thandie Newton. Because maybe not so much this season with Thandie Newton. Like Maeve has maybe not been shown the most range, although she a little bit more in this episode, which we'll get to.
Right. There's also that scene with Maeve. Like, yeah, this episode is moving around a lot. Now I get it. It's an hour-long episode. It's hard to write a whole episode for one character. But you know what? Like Star Trek did it. Star Trek could do it, no problem. Like,
it's hard, I think it's harder on us as we're trying to recap this. We're like, and it bounced up. It bounced over to this story, and then it bounced over to that story, and so
right. And maybe that's where my criticism is coming from. Is that like. You got all these characters in this show, and you're trying to write this Game of Thrones style show, and maybe it didn't need to be that. Maybe it could have been more like a Star Trek style, where okay, we're going to deal with this character today, and then we're going to go deal with these 2 characters, and then we're going to deal with you know what I mean. And I just kind of think they could have did that, but I get they're amping up toward a finale. That's how TV shows work, and they want to include all the characters in the finale, and I think they will. I think you'll see that on the.
Oh well, yeah. Like we're all like left wondering, like, why are they all together now? Like, do they really all have to be separated and then meet up at the end? I guess that's how TV works, but yeah. But like, really, like, there's so few characters on this show, and fewer every episode because they keep killing them off. You're just like, let's get them all together. They give us a little taste of that.
Maybe I should just take Delos's advice and just say it's not always about you.
Maybe there's something bigger here.
Yeah. So then we get the shot here of the park. And is this the first time we've seen the park from outside? I mean, this is a very cool
maybe this particular angle was a bit different.
Yeah. Like they show like like the little balcony part where Hale was hanging out having some cigarettes in season 2. They do show that exact area in this shot, but I mean, this doesn't look like China. This looks like Arizona. Like, what's going?
It's some big island in the South China Sea, right?
They created this landscape. Is that right?
Maybe, yeah. Like China's already making islands in the South China Sea, so I guess they could make one for an amusement park.
I guess you're right. Yeah.
Do you know about that? Like, that China's trying to take over international waters all over the place, and so they've been building. They literally like bring in dirt from other places and building like land masses so that it's like a land mass that they can say is China. And you can't take this this international water space from us. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's all but like this is just more Maeve's getting her troops and what has to happen to get to that. Where are we?
The next scene, that's why they show the park, is Sirach's goons walk into Westworld and they basically kill everybody except Hector. They take Hector's body.
Yeah, so these are Sirach's guys. Okay, and so they burned all the hosts down. Is that what?
I believe that's what occurred. Yes, they
They
killed.
took a flamethrower. I never understood why they stored the bodies at all. I guess for money.
Yeah, because they're valuable. I guess. Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, it just shows that maybe they're just preventing Dolores from building an army, and they don't want that type thing.
Yeah.
So then we get the scene in here in the War World here where Maeve is talking to Hector, and then she basically does her little Jedi mind trick and makes him remember everything, and then they embrace, they have a kiss. Do you buy this whole romance between Hector and Maeve? I mean, I don't know.
Not so much that I didn't feel like they had a lot of good chemistry in this episode. I think when you first showed up in the second episode and they were reunited and you said, okay, great. And then it turns out he's just in that simulation. He has a new narrative and he doesn't remember anything. Then you're like, okay, whatever. And then I sort of forgot about Hector, honestly. And then they brought him back for this one.
I never looked at him though as Maeve's most romantic. She always cared about her daughter. She never really cared about Hector. She did care about him, but it was never you're my number one, ride or die. That's how he felt about her. But I never felt that's the way she felt about him.
Right. I always felt like she was fine if she lost him. Right. Either way.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's something disingenuous about it. I don't know. It just doesn't feel quite real. And maybe it's just he's put her in she's put him in the friend zone, and that's what it is. I don't really get it. I don't know. I don't really understand.
Yeah, I just feel like I just didn't get super excited by it when he was like, okay, now Hector's back in.
Is that
right? Hector knows who he is.
Writing? Is that a failure of the performance? I'm not quite sure of why. Sometimes in this show, because they're AI and they're playing them very stilted, I find sometimes it just doesn't connect with the audience. And so do you kind of agree with me on that one?
Sometimes it's hit and miss for me, and this was more of a miss. The moment didn't make me feel enough, as much as it should have.
Right. Okay. So yeah, Sizemore's there, and they're talking about this is real, this is a simulation, and then she wakes him up, and Maeve knows that her brain ball and Sizemore and Hector's brain ball are being moved, right?
Right.
And then she is able to hack into the camera, and she sees Charloris, in the room where her brain balls are, and this is when she ends up going to do her conversation with Dolores. So let's break down the conversation with Dolores.
Okay, so she figures out that Sirach has recruited Maeve, and Maeve is going to have a new body, and she's got some recruits. So Charlotte Hale, who is Dolores, sets out to stop this. But she also notices that another version of Dolores from, I guess, season 2 was left behind in Westworld. I didn't understand that. What was that green, gross-looking control unit that was Dolores, I guess? Because we see them pull it out and she disappears, right? Inside of the Maeve simulation.
I feel like it's the Dolores before she learned all the library. But even though she knows that she did that, though, which is weird. But I don't feel like this Dolores knows everything.
Yeah, that was my biggest part of this Dolores that we get to talk to Maeve later on. I'm like, what exact point? Yeah, do you have memory up to? Is that even answered in this episode?
It's I don't know. It's an odd way of explaining things because they they want us to understand everything that's happened to Dolores, but at the same time, Dolores is like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing out in the real world right now. So you're right. Like, what is the point? Is it right after she learns everything in the library? That would make sense then. Maybe it's right after she learns everything in the library, and then she's cut off. It's like only Dolores that was in the park.
I guess it's very confusing. That part is very confusing.
Maybe the Dolores in the simulation is actually Dolores Prime, but it's Dolores Prime going back to like season 1, season 2. That is the original Dolores. When Dolores left the park, she made 4 copies of herself, or 5 copies of herself. The first one was like Dolores Prime that walked out of the park as Charlotte Hale. That was actually Dolores 2, though. That was like actually the first copy.
So you're saying that? Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So she left her original brain ball behind.
Right. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Is that
maybe? I don't know. Like the logistics of that. Like I don't. Maybe it's a weird thing to get hung up on, but this is the rules of this world, of this Westworld fantasy, and like hardware and software are things that we understand. Okay, we grew up with this stuff. So just be consistent with it. Like if you're saying that this is a copy of Dolores from some other point in the show's history, then just be kind of clear about what that is. But this was not. I don't even think we're talking about that scene yet, are we? But
yeah, we're on it right now.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah. So basically, she walks in. Maeve goes, like, oh, is she going to be hostile to us? That's what Hector says to Maeve. She goes, no, here I'm in control. Like, this is a simulation. And I have more power here than she does.
Yeah, but not. Yeah, it doesn't save. Not enough to save Hector.
Well, that's because that happened in the outside world,
right?
Where Dolores has a lot more power. Anyway, so
why didn't Hale crush her like Maeve's brain ball?
Well, I think she was going to, and then she got interrupted. She was going to kill them all.
Right, and she only got to kill Hector. Is that what happened?
That's okay. Right. That was the first one she got. Okay, this is kind of my problem with this episode. Like, I do love the episode, but like, we get the introduction of Maeve meeting the simulation Dolores. Then we skip back to the Man in Black scene. Like, why do we got to skip back all the time? Like, why does it need to do this? Like, I mean, can't we just get like? This is my problem. Is like, why not just have a whole episode of we deal with the Man in Black, and then we deal with Maeve and Dolores, and then we have another episode that deals with I think they could have done Charlotte Hale and her whole story with this Maeve and Dolores story. They could have put that all in one episode, and then had a whole episode just for the Man in Black. And we could have really did a deep dive into the Man in Black, showed him in the park, showed him with his daughter, maybe had a flashback with his daughter, something that, we love this character, give us more. We would not have been upset at this, Anyway, so then we go back to the Man in Black, and then we get a lot of philosophical conversations going on with the Man in Black.
Dad cares.
You don't even know how to spell Dolores.
Yeah.
I can't believe he's the fact that he's watching us recap
a show he knows nothing about.
No, nothing about. He's bored up there. Just
no, she's not black.
She is. I mean, the one a copy of her is black. Charlotte Hale as Dolores is black.
Oh, okay, yeah, but no.
Anyway, so we go back to the maybe it's because we were talking about the Man in Black. So the Man in Black is talking about what makes him him, and has to go through all of his past selves to end up getting to that realization in his mind. He's like for a long time he didn't understand his purpose, and it seemed like he needed to go through this to kind of understand what he wants to do. Basically, is that how you took it?
Like he had to kill all of the versions of himself.
Yeah, he needed to bury his past. Like he says that in the he goes, it doesn't matter what I did. What matters is what I'm going to do. He says that, right? So he needed to kill his past to stop dwelling on it, basically.
Right, and just look forward. Stop.
Right.
which is I guess that's cathartic.
Yeah,
for him.
that's exactly what happens. It's a very
Why doesn't he have to kill why doesn't he have to kill Delos?
because Delos isn't himself.
But why is he there?
He's there, like I said, he's there as like a narrator. He's there to
Yeah.
like kind of guide him. You know, he even kills the kid version of himself, right?
Yeah, we don't get to see that. I guess he killed him first. He didn't seem to kill them in chronological order because he killed Jimmy Simpson last. So,
Which was a lot of fun, by the way.
I don't understand how he beat up the other four, but by the time he killed the second one, the other two hadn't figured it out. Whereas the man in white just more powerful than the rest, or it's just a simulation and it doesn't matter.
The man in white is also dealing with two fingers that aren't there. So it's it must have nothing to do with physical ability, like you're saying.
Right. Okay, so yeah, and then ultimately, if we just want to stay, we can just stick on one of these if you want, like with how the Men in Black story ends in this episode. He ends up with Murtaugh and Riggs, and Bernard and Stubbs. So
yes,
and Riggs is crazy.
Oh, I think Riggs isn't crazy. The Man in Black is going to be the crazy one. Yeah. Yes, Dad. The podcast does stay on the internet forever. You can watch it at a later date.
Whenever you want it will be on the internet forever.
Yeah, forever. Worldwide, every night, 9:00
on YouTube, on Facebook, our audio feed for as long as those things exist. Basically.
Yeah, so basically we get with the Man in Black here. We do get he ends up with Bernard and Stubbs. And do we think this is kind of like the new team? This is the good guy team, for now.
These three?
Yeah.
Can Ed Harris be the Joe Pesci in this trio? If he's joining the Lethal Weapon franchise with the Bernard and Stubbs.
Yeah, what's his name in that in those movie series? He's
Joe Pesci's character? I don't know.
I just know he says okay about a bajillion times.
Yeah.
I don't know. I do think that eventually the Man in Black is going to do some evil thing, and but I do think for the first little while he's going to be the guy that is on their he's going to be their muscle, because Bernard and Stubbs are inept. They're dumb. They don't know what the hell they're doing. They need some sort of guidance. They need some sort.
Is that why they sought him out? Because they had nowhere else to go. They're like, "Damn, he's still a character on the show. Who can tell us what to do?" Because there's nobody left. Like, I guess Maeve, but Maeve and Bernard, I can't even remember the last time they talked to each other. Maeve and Bernard. So.
I mean, there's another character. Is Bernard is supposed to be one of the main characters of this show, and he has barely been in this season. He's basically just been palling around with Stubbs.
And when he is there, he's usually with Stubbs. They don't know what they're doing. They're waiting for someone to tell them what to do or where to go. They have vaguely formed notions about what they're trying to do. I don't know. I guess they're trying to stop Dolores. That's their mission. And so maybe. And I don't know how they figured out where Men in Black was, but they guess they did, and maybe they realized he would be a good ally against Dolores, so they sought him out, and that's why they end up with him here. Yeah,
maybe they'll get explained next episode. We won't know until that happens. So then we get to a scene here with Charlotte Hale, and she's calling her. Or did you want to go back to the Dolores scene with Maeve? Do you want to talk about that?
Sure.
Okay, we can talk about that scene real quick. Basically, they talk about their motives, their who they're aligned with. Basically, Maeve is talking, about the fact how can I not do anything but seek out to destroy you because you mean to destroy me, and Dolores is like you're aligned with the guy that wants to destroy our whole kind, so she's like, you're not the hero and you're not the villain, and neither am I. We're survivivors.
I liked this scene. I liked, I just like that now. I like the fact that Dolores has killed Hector and that Maeve has a real reason to go after her now. Although I think I understand Dolores that she was just sort of doing it as a preemptive strike. Dad wants to just say some things here.
I'll let you.
He says he wants to do a Ross Cup podcast talking about the 21 Ross Cups, then do a Copper Cup podcast for another 21. Then he'll do couples for 5, and he could be an internet star. Sure. I think you can do that, Dad. You can talk about all the Ross Cups. Are you can do a podcast for each Ross Cup? That would be interesting. If you could even keep that up. So Ross Cup 2000, let me tell you some stories.
We should have different guests that were at those Ross Cups.
Yeah, that would make sense. Talk to somebody who was actually there.
Yeah. I'll come on some of the ones I was there at, but I'm not gonna do the ones that I wasn't there for.
I attended. I didn't go to one until 2004, I think, 2003.
Right,
something like that. Anywho's, yeah. So the scene I liked this scene. I don't understand why Dolores was in naked mode, but I think that the show has a certain quotient of nakedness they have to fit in every season.
They had the scene where Serac burned all the bodies. There was probably 100 naked people on the scene.
Right. But if Dolores had been in her blue dress, the scene would have worked just as well. It wouldn't have made a difference.
Yeah, why do they do that? Why do you think they do? Just because it's HBO and they can? And wouldn't the actress be like, "Hey, I'm cold."
Well, I think that the whole nakedness worked. I guess the whole as a plot device, I think they used it in the first season in particular to show us that the hosts were not looked at as human, right? That they were seen as just like things. So much to the point that the human characters were unaffected by their nudity because it doesn't matter. They're just robots, right? And so there's also that sort of dehumanizing effect of it, putting like the host naked on that chair. Who's in control? It's a system of control. So I think that he wants a moderator. What can be a moderator, Dad? But it's like a system of control, and so I think that's what they're always trying to do here. I think that's why she's naked in this scene. Is that because Maeve says I'm in control here.
Yeah, well, Maeve's not naked, and neither is Hector or Sizemore. They're all wearing clothes.
Right, because I guess she starts and she says she has to say bring yourself online to wake her up or whatever.
Yeah, so maybe that's the only reason they did that, just so she could say that line. They're like, we need to say that line. So
yeah, that's the Westworld line. Everybody knows that.
Line. So you got to be naked because we have that line in the script.
Yeah, everyone knows that.
Yeah, everyone knows.
No, I liked this scene. I especially like that they got they took the shots at each other here. I like that that we are heading towards this showdown. I think I need Maeve to destroy Dolores is ultimately what I want. And then whatever, I don't know, Maeve will figure it out after. She always does.
I feel like Dolores is smarter than Maeve, though. I mean, I know you're a big Maeve fan, but Dolores is one step ahead of Maeve every fucking time. She's way more bright. She's just smarter. Maeve is kind of naive. I feel like
Dolores is way more calculated. Maeve is more reactive. And maybe a bit. Maeve is more just like pure force. Don't mess with Maeve, but Dolores is more like calculating and devious and sneaky and has all this information and is a manipulator in a way that Maeve is not.
Dolores predicts outcomes and then acts based off those predictions, like Rehoboam, like the thing she's trying to destroy. Whereas Maeve, like you said, you kill Hector, my boo, fuck you. That's Maeve. Well,
Maeve was already going to take the fight to Dolores, but now she's just extra.
She was this scene was the scene that really we needed because it was why is Maeve doing this? Like it was like is Maeve. Why is she helping Serac? She really doesn't like Serac. I
can get that she was doing it only because she had to, because Serac's like, do it or I'll kill you, or you won't, But other than that, that's not a good enough reason, really, because Maeve is not somebody who does things for other people. So now I think she's been given a reason to want to get her revenge on Dolores.
And she might kill Serac too.
Because Maeve does try to plead with her, the other Dolores, right? Like that's what makes this kind of weird. It's like the Hale Dolores who kills Hector is not having the conversation directly with Maeve, right? Maybe this conversation would go differently if it was Hale talking to Maeve, but instead it's this other Dolores. So, because she says, "Well, like you need to give us the encryption key. You need to stop this fight." And Dolores says, "No," and Maeve's like, "Well, you don't give me any choice." And she goes, "I know." So we're like, I think Dolores has kind of accepted that they are meant to run into each other in some way.
Yeah,
in a big way.
I agree, and I just think Dolores is one step ahead of Maeve every single time, and we'll see. We'll see if Maeve is able to get the upper hand. I think I could very easily see that this being the last season for Maeve, and Maeve die at the end of this season with Dolores killing her. Don't be surprised if that happens because Dolores is the main character of this show, not Maeve, and Maeve is kind of like the secondary or even tertiary character a lot of the times. And so if she's killed, it'll be more sad, and that's probably what they're going to do because this is what the show does.
I'd much rather like Dolores. I'm out on. I've been out on Dolores this whole season.
Hey, me too. But I know what the show loves Dolores. I mean, it's clear they love this character. They've built her from the beginning. Everything with Dolores has been she's like the marquee character. And so Maeve is not. Maeve is like she's on. She's not on the posters.
So Dolores is Jon Snow.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, like Maeve is like Robb Stark.
Gonna be dead at the end of season 3.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Right.
We love Maeve. I loved Robb Stark, but Robb Stark had to go, and maybe Maeve will have to go too. Because after this, I just don't know how much Maeve is going to matter.
Oh, I'm Team Maeve to the end.
So you're like Team Stark to the end. How did that turn out?
Mixed results, mixed bag.
Well, if you watch the fucking final season, you were like, even if you love the Starks, you hated it.
You hated it, but the Starks won effectively, right? Spoilers.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Okay. So then we get the scene here where Serac, finds out who Charlotte Hale is. Oh no, we should talk about the Hector thing where she kills Hector.
Oh, we kind of did. We'd already talked about it. We
talked about it? Okay. So we get the scene with Charlotte Hale here where they find out that who she is, that she's Dolores, like that at least Serac knows. And Serac's, and the one line where I really thought about you, Dave, was when he said, Charlotte Hale wouldn't care about her kids. That was the one scene where like Dave was right. She wouldn't care about her kids. He was right.
Not one. He says more specifically when all of this is going on, like she wouldn't have taken that moment. If she knew she was in a life or death situation, we know that she did send that message to her son, the real Charlotte Hale did, which I thought was out of character. So, when that was brought back, like Charlotte Hale would have do something nice for her son in this moment.
Was that Charlotte Hale though, or was that Dolores as Charlotte Hale?
No, that was the real Charlotte Hale.
That was the real Charlotte Hale.
Yeah, because you see she's wearing like the yellow dress that she was wearing during the season 1 finale massacre.
Right. Okay. All right. So that makes sense. That's fine. Okay. Because there is this other theory that's been going on because you do know like when she recorded that message, and then they show that message, and then they show Charlotte Hale, the Dolores Charlotte Hale, watching that message, the text and like what is being said is actually different both times. And so when you actually consider like there's a whole bunch of theories going on that there's a mirror world going on that in Rehoboam that predicts the whole future, that is a mirror world that is going on. And sometimes they're showing us the mirror world and sometimes they're showing us the real world.
Wait. What do you mean? What are you talking about?
I'm talking about the original message that Charlotte Hale recorded. Okay. They show it to us in one, and this is in a previous episode. The first time, okay, and then they show it to us again, okay, and then the actual things she says are different. Like the actual words that they show us are.
Oh, it's like a different take or something.
It's a completely different take. Like they're like the words, like she says basically the same thing, but the actual words she says are in completely different order and are in like different sequence of what she says. So like some sentences are removed, and then so all I'm saying is there's a theory out there that there's a mirror universe that Rehoboam is showing us sometimes that is the predictive world, and so that's a theory that's going out right now. So just look out for that. That's why there's so much mirror symbolism. They're showing us mirrors all the goddamn time in this show. So and like even like and they show reflections a lot where so and they're doing this on purpose. Like I said, the show doesn't do anything.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking about like the title sequence this season, which they've updated. It's a lot of like mirror images and yeah, that's right. Has that always been part of the opening credits, or is that specific to this season?
No, it's specific to this season. There's a lot of mirror symbolism going on, and all I'm saying is look out for that. Everybody that's watching the show, that is going on right now.
Is the way that Rehoboam's able to kind of determine like that Caleb is going to commit suicide, or that woman, that psychiatrist, was going to lose her practice, have an affair, and become addicted to opioids, is because Rehoboam's constantly like running simulations, I guess, based on what it knows about you and everybody, what it knows about everybody, and is able to sort of say, okay, like there's 10 million futures based on all this data. And they're sort of like running all the scenarios, kind of like I think there was an episode like Black Mirror like this, I believe, where they kind of did something similar.
Right.
Or like in a computer simulation, you can do it so many billions of times, because it doesn't matter. It's a computer that you can, and that what we're being shown on this show is potentially that, or at least some of the scenes are that.
Absolutely. And so sometimes, so all I'm saying is that with certain scenes, we have to have a mindset that sometimes what we're being shown isn't necessarily what's actually occurring.
Right.
And so that might be what's going on. Like even the scene right now, I'm looking at if you actually want to share my screen, I'll show you what I mean of how this symbolism is everywhere in this show.
Sure.
I mean, I literally just paused this at a random part of the episode, but this is right after she the part we're talking about. But see, just look at the room behind him, and then if you look at the floor is also being reflected in complete mirror in a mirror way, right? Yeah. They're doing this on purpose. That's all I'm saying. Like there's so many mirror symbolism. You go back through the whole season, and this is going on throughout the episode. And throughout the whole season, and we're going to keep getting that, I think, going forward, and it'll eventually get explained in a reveal in the last episode. That's my theory.
It's solid theory.
Anyway, so we're talking a lot about the what's going on here in this part of the episode here, which is pretty awesome. I mean, the whole thing where Serac finds out whose Hale is Dolores, and then he goes, "Hey, did you not see this coming?" She's like, "Actually, I did." And then boom, her canister turns into a gas and gases everybody, and then it's on. Charlotte Hale is basically now Ethan Hunt for Mission Impossible, and she's just murking everybody. Like she and she's busting out of this place, but she's got to go do some things first. Yeah,
I like the Tessa Thompson Dolores better than the Evan Rachel Wood Dolores.
This season, yes.
Yeah.
Overall, I do like Evan Rachel Wood's performance for the first two seasons. This season, she's unlikable in every way. Other than the one episode where she's working Caleb, she worked him very well in that scene. And
but then you're left feeling like she's not exactly a good host, I guess, or person.
Well, I mean, I don't think we're supposed to like her. I mean, I think we're supposed to like Charlotte Hale. I think we're supposed to like her version. They're setting
more. Like we're supposed to sympathize more with the Charlotte Hale version.
Yes.
Than the Evan Rachel Wood version. Yeah.
And don't be surprised if she's on the good side going forward, or she does some sort of act where she turns on Dolores Prime, because I think that's coming too. So then we get the scene here, which was pretty awesome, where she's busting out, but then the guards stop her and they go, "Hey, we want her alive," right? And then she calls the mech, that was set up in an earlier episode to come save her, and then this mech just absolutely murks the Serac guards. I mean, that was pretty awesome.
This is fun. This is a fun bit of, I don't know. It looked so real. It was some great CGI.
Yeah.
This worked a lot really well.
I would like to know how they shot that because it was really cool for sure. So it was just some great action, some of the best set pieces of the season. Charlotte Hale really, I mean, Tessa Thompson got a lot of cool moments here. I mean, she's used to it. She's worked in the Marvel universe. She's had some great action sequences there over there as Valkyrie, but I'm sure this was probably one of the funnest for her to shoot.
It was a good scene. It had a lot of high energy. If she wanted to protect those two, the son and the boyfriend or husband or whatever, she should just ran away, like not go to try to save them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you're probably right about that. Yeah, Charlotte Hale's, she is still Dolores though. I mean, that's the thing. That's the problem too. Is like we look at her as a different person almost, but she isn't.
But she isn't.
Well, she is and she isn't. She's still Dolores, which makes it weird because like she looks so different. She's acting differently than Dolores. She's arguing with herself basically on the phone.
And has some kind of weird relationship with herself.
Yeah, she does have a very weird relationship with herself. And it makes you think maybe Dolores shouldn't have done this. Maybe Dolores should have actually just tried to trust some other hosts.
Or make her own hosts. She could have also tried to like create new personalities. So she kind of had some training in that from like what helping in the creation of Bernard.
You're probably right. Yep, for sure. She could have been the new Robert Ford. I guess you're right.
Because the host, you can't just birth a new host. The host has to be like created slowly, right? Because it's it's a learning machine. So you have to kind of teach this machine how to like a base code, and then you put like a narrative, a personality on top of that.
So it shows here that 4 hosts are getting made in this room that Charloris walks into. Okay, so she kills one of the brain balls, which is Hector, but the host is still getting made, right? Is that right? So presumably there's going to be 3 people helping Maeve because we know one of them's Maeve because she walks out at the end of the episode. One of them's Hector, but she destroys that one. Now then that leaves 2. Who are the other 2 hosts that are getting made?
Other than Sizemore, I think that they're going to be the technicians, but I think it's going to be the Felix and whatever his name is. You know who I mean, right? The 2 Westworld technicians.
They were human.
I know, but remember that inside the simulation there was there were simulation counterparts for those guys.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be them. I think it'll be Clementine will be one of them, and I think Teddy will be the other one. But it might not be Teddy. It might be somebody from the Shogun world or something like that. It's going to be they're going to be allies of Maeve for sure. And maybe you're right. Maybe it will be one of the. I don't think it'll be a human though. I think they'll make it a host, like a previous host.
Maybe, yeah, we'll see. It'll be somebody we know for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Clementine will definitely be one of them, and I think Sizemore. Well, I think we already.
Sizemore's definitely one of them. I think that's how they're getting that actor back in the show, and I could see. She always liked those guys, right? But like they're really alive and they're somewhere. So unless she's gonna track them down, but
right.
I think she'd rather have host versions of them than the real ones in this fight.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? I mean, we're kind of getting toward the end scene here, where Charlotte Hale's limping. She goes home to her husband and her kid, who don't seem too weirded out that she's been shot
twice
and is limping, and doesn't have any emotion on her face, and like. What and then she's like, I can protect you, let's get in this car and everything will be okay. And then the car blows up. Then this is the one part of the episode that bothered me, was that the car blows up and then there's a guy there, which I'm guessing is one of Sirach's guys that blew that car up.
Yeah, that's what we're led to believe.
Yeah, Dolores that did it, because they would have showed Dolores if it had been Dolores.
No, it wasn't Dolores. No.
Right. So and so Charlotte is trying to leave. It blows up, and then the guy leaves, and then she crawls out of the car. And it's like, why did the guy leave? He's like, job done. I'm leaving. And then,
Yeah, you see it. He's just like, I've blown it up. I'm not going to verify my kills. That's not how I work in the mercenary world. It was a shot. I fired the shot, and they're all dead, probably.
how does Serac always have these idiots working for him?
I don't think Sirac's very smart himself. I know he built he's the smartest man in the world, or the richest man in the world, at least. But yeah, he's not who does he have left? Right? Hale was working for him. She's not working for him, at least. She thinks she's dead. Palm Clementif, gone. Liam Jr., gone. Like, who does this guy have left working for him? Yeah, only Maeve, I guess, and Maeve only doing it kind of begrudgingly.
Yeah, Serac's not making it out of this season. Let's just be clear right now. He's dying.
I just don't know how he's going to make it another couple episodes. Yeah, he lost Tommy Flanagan's character in Martin.
Yeah, everyone around Serac dies.
Everyone. Yeah, I wouldn't want to know this guy.
I won't be surprised if Caleb is the one that killed Serac. I think that's what's going to happen.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, so she gets out. A single tear falls down Charlotte Hale's or Dolores's face, and we're left with the impression this is war. But who is she coming after? Is she coming after Dolores or is she coming after Serac? That's the question.
Who, Maeve?
No, Charlotte. Who is she going after? Is she going?
Charlotte is Charlotte Hale Dolores. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Who is she? Who's the revenge toward? Is it toward herself, or is it toward Serac? Because I think there's a case to be made for both characters that she's going to be pissed at.
She might be pissed at Dolores.
Because Dolores says in this episode they're not your family, and then all these things to her. But obviously she does care about her family. That's where she went. Her whole ambition was to save them.
Mm-hmm.
So her emotions are affecting her decision making quite clearly. And Dolores also says to her, "Go back to the compound. Go do this thing for me. They won't know it's you. You're gonna be fine." And obviously, that's not what happened.
No, and she was not fine ultimately.
And Dolores probably do that.
Well, yeah, and with Charlotte, she asks quite pointedly to Dolores Prime, like, "What about Martin? What about the Tommy Flanagan guy who blew himself up last week? He was another version of us. They're gone." And Dolores is like, "You got to break a couple eggs. We're not all going to make it." We'll see how Hale responds to this. Like Charlotte, whatever her name is. I could see her being equally pissed with Dolores, maybe, but
I hope so. I hope that Dolores is her own demise.
But I think ultimately it's going to be Maeve who gets her.
I think that's just because that's what you want. But I think it's more philosophical that Dolores is her own worst enemy, literally.
That'd be something. It'd be great if there's only two other Doloreses. Like if the other two Doloreses turned against Dolores Prime, that'd be something.
I mean, we haven't gotten the Shogun Dolores in a while. Maybe
no.
I think that'll be Dolores's only ally with Caleb going forward.
Yeah, and Caleb's probably turning on her in half a second anyway, because he keeps looking at Dolores like, what am I tied up with? Yeah, but great episode overall. I liked this episode.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, hey, we made it to 2 hours on this one, so it must have been pretty good. So, hey, 2 hours is probably that's pretty long for a podcast. Maybe we should call it.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Right.
We said all we needed to say. So this has been Welcome to Westworld, Season 3, Episode 6, Decoherence. We'll see you next week. And
we'll be back for Episode 7, titled Past Pawn. Here we go.
All right. Well, who knows what that means? So I guess we'll find out.
It's a chess term. That's when the queen goes, you get a pawn across the board and it becomes a queen.
Yes.
So, hey, a pawn is becoming a queen.
And that's probably Charlotte Hale. But we'll see. We'll find out.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back tomorrow for Live Long and Podcast for our start of the Star Trek Deep Space Nine rewatch. It's only going to take us 3.5 years, and you can start this journey with us. So be part of that.
We got Jamil has agreed to be on the show when he's available as well. He's
Oh, good.
big
Did
fan
you got the
of-
panel for tomorrow? Is the panel for tomorrow lined up?
I will. I know you're on it. I will ask Jamil if he's free tomorrow. So we'll see if he wants to come on.
Okay, great. All right. Well, we'll see you tomorrow night, everyone, and we'll be back next week for Westworld. Till then,
Okay.
take care.
Take care. Bye.